My granddad is, without a doubt, one of the most awe-inspiring, badass, cool motherfuckers I have ever known in my life. He is an incredible human being who has achieved in his time on this planet more than I can ever hope or dream of. And if I do manage to do even a tenth of what he has achieved in his lifetime, I know I'll be proud of myself. I suppose you could call me a bit of a nan kid. For those outside of the UK, that just means a kid who was raised with their grandparents. My parents also raised me my entire life. They were never absent for any part of it. But we lived with my grandparents from the age of from when I was about 10 or 11. And as such, my granddad has played an enormous role in my life growing up. He taught me more than any amount of time in school could have ever hoped to. I consider myself so lucky to have the parents and the grandparents that I've had, because they have all given me so much more than I've ever felt I deserve, and so much more than I could ever really ask for. My granddad served in the RAF in Egypt and survived terrorist bombings, shrapnel bombs, and landmines exploding beneath the caravan of vehicles he was travelling within. He later on went on to serve in the Metropolitan Police Force in London and rose through the ranks serving as an undercover agent. He was basically a fucking spy. He was a detective. He went from Bobby on the beat to helping stop some of the most horrendous crimes that London has ever seen. He also has some fairly hilarious stories. Sometimes he was maybe on the wrong side of history. He was an undercover cop during the student riots against Maggie Thatcher, and he was there trying to take down the guys speaking and getting all the students riled up. And perhaps my favourite one of his old stories, he may have ruined England's chances in the Olympics once. This was back when he was just a Bobby on the beat. A brawl broke out in a bar. That's a good bit of alliteration there. And he and his buddy, he and his mate, his fellow cop, God, English words, come on, Peter. He and his partner, they went into this bar, cracking heads left, right and centre with their truncheons, as he described it. And there was this one lad, got away. He was running so fast, and Grandad was chasing after him. He was trying to catch him, and this guy was just running too fast. He was getting away. So he lobbed his truncheon at him and got him square in the back of the head, knocking him out, dragged him off to a cell. And yeah, the guy got a concussion, and he was meant to be running in the Olympics in 2 weeks' time for the UK. Yeah. But I also know he never killed anyone in the line of service. He never went out of his way to maliciously destroy a good person's life. He believed in what he was doing, and he was a good cop. After serving in the police and literally rising through the ranks pretty much as high as you can get, he went on to be a private detective, private investigator. Whilst still serving in the Met, he studied at the Open University and gained a degree that he'd always sought. He'd just always wanted one, and went on to study advanced criminology. And we'll have a look at some of his certificates in a bit, but he became a highly accredited private investigator. And some of the stories from that, I'm still just finding out and still learning. I recently found an article about him in a newspaper where he had just taken down this absolute bloody mafia conspiracy beer importing thing. It's It's an absolute read. It's phenomenal. We'll make a video about that. Sadly, I know he doesn't really remember any of this anymore. Just a few months ago, I was showing him this photo of him and his buddies in the Met, and he was naming every single one of them. We were having an absolute laugh. He couldn't remember any stories, but he could still remember their names. And now he doesn't really remember even being in the Met. He was with them for 30 plus years of his life, and it is gone. Blocked off by these evil little fucking proteins in his head. His condition over the last few months has worsened rapidly. Since I spoke about that incident with him having sepsis, things got much worse. He has a fucking tap coming out of his stomach now, basically, because he can't use his bladder anymore. And I was helping look after him. He's now had to move back in with me and my parents and we have got a full-time carer living with us as well. He's sort of reached that toddler level of dementia at times, and it just fucking sucks. I have stuck into my head. It's burnt into my head. I was just like a few months ago, I was helping out, and I got a call from his wife, my grandma Sally. They married only a few years ago. It was the cutest thing. It was just the cutest thing. Grandad met this woman called Sally, and they just hit it off so well. They've had a lovely 5 years, I think, together. But his brain is just going now, so he's had to move back in with us. And she called me up one day to ask me to come around and help. And I was going around and helping anyway at that point in time. It was before the COVID outbreak. This sort of like 4 or 5 months ago now. And I get round there, and he's just stood there clinging the door frame to the bathroom, and he's just covered in shit. He's pooed himself, and there is just shit all down his legs. It's getting onto his bandages. He's somehow got, it's just everywhere, and I cannot get this image of the most powerful man I have ever known. This guy who just a few years ago was still playing badminton, tennis, ping pong. He is so physically fit, clinging onto this door frame, not a clue what's going on, covered in shit. I helped him. I cleaned him down. I know I did everything I could. I made sure that he was clean. I got him dressed, got everything cleaned up, cleaned the bathroom entirely for them. But I cannot get that image burnt out of that. It's there. Every time I think about him and try to think of one of the happy memories, because I have so many good memories. The reason I know I'm good at woodwork, the reason why I like this stuff is because that comes from him. I spent so much time in the garden with him growing up. He loved bonfires and would sit by the bonfire, and I'd whittle a stick, and he'd give me tips. He'd tell me how to use a saw. He told me how to hold a knife. He taught me all of that stuff. He taught me how to start fires. We were little pyromaniacs down the garden together. I loved bonfire nights with him. They were the best. And I start thinking about these happy memories, and instead I'm just got this image in my head. Smile and the world smiles back at you, right? Anyway, dementia is a protein. We should have a cure for it by now. It needs more funding into its research. But it is funded less than a tenth. I don't know the statistics off by heart, so I'm going to link to a Jeff Holiday video that is also about this, and one of his, I think it's his, I can't remember right now, brain's fucked. But anyway, I'm going to link to a Jeff Holiday video in this, and I really advise you watch that, because it will teach you a lot more about this than I can in this video. He knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. And he's a really fucking good guy. and you should watch his stuff. And YouTube has recently stopped recommending his content to me, thinking about it. Even though I'm subscribed, notification bell to him, it stopped suggesting me his content. I'm going to have to look that one up. Anyway, we should have a cure for Alzheimer's, for dementia by now. We know exactly what it is. We know what the protein is. And this protein, it forms like these crystals in your brain, and it's literally cutting off chunks of your brain, piece at a time, stopping the electrical signals shooting back and forth from the neurons in your brain. There's a solid chunk of protein there, forming what effectively form like these crystals in your brain. And we can see them, we know what they are. It's a protein. Yes, there are millions of fucking proteins. I don't know. I'm going to have to ask one of my science friends about this, about how many proteins there are. But there's an enzyme for everything. It's a protein. We can create an enzyme that breaks it down. And we haven't done because we haven't funded its research. And because of that, somebody who is physically fit and had all their marbles just a couple of years ago has had this rapidly advancing illness. And he shouldn't have. He's always used his brain. He's always been an incredibly smart man. He loved painting. I get a lot of my love for watercolor painting from him. Massively inspired by his paintings. So when I say this man was a goddamn badass and a spy, I mean like a goddamn badass and a spy. Now I know some of you guys have seen some of this stuff before, and I never explained what it was. This is some of my granddad's old stuff that he'd let me have one day just to look at and play with. Yeah, she told me if I wanted to, I could see if I could get a price for it on eBay, but I decided I'd rather keep hold of it than sell it because it was just too cool. This is just his old like leather briefcase thing. But so this stuff we have here, this is from the 70s or 80s, no, late 80s, early 90s, wireless receiver and transmitter for bugging people. Or you could use it for yourself with this like tiny little, like the sort of mics you see people walking around with on their chests these days, but this would be hidden in your suit. I've tested it out. It's ridiculously powerful. It's powered by a battery. It has a phenomenal pickup range, which then is fed into this little box? This little box. Oh, it's either of these. That's right. Just fed into this little box. And then, no. It is fed into this. I can't remember quite how it works. It's spy gear, man. This is even cooler, in my opinion, because it's so goddamn illegal in a sense. It doesn't work anymore. It's decommissioned. Definitely doesn't work anymore. It's a wiretap. It's straight up for wiretapping. Back when phone lines used an analog signal instead of digital. These days they're pretty much all digital. Back when they were analog, you'd clip the probe, clip this probe attached to this box onto a wire, and with that, you would then start listening in on that person's phone calls. It was really easy to use and very effective. And you could put this little earpiece in it so you could just listen. So this little probe here sticks into it instead of the grabber thingy. And that way you like move it along the wires, detecting to see if you can find a signal to find the right house that you're trying to listen into, or the right, strength. Really cool piece of kit. And you could also hook it up to like a little recording unit. So you just have that hooked up to somebody's phone line, and then you walk away, have that recording, listening on all their conversations. So great. And then this badass is like a proper portable ham radio device that lets you listen in on
airplanes and boats and all sorts of crazy stuff. And again, not saying I've tested it out and that it works. It's definitely decommissioned. But it works really well and it's amazing. It's fucking cool. Not that I've ever used it, and I would never use it because I'm pretty sure that's illegal, listening in on the airplane chatter. But if you wanted to, you could with this sort of stuff. He was a motherfucking spy. Medals for, surviving the terrorist attack, and his service in the Canal Zone, police long service and good conduct medal. Just, bit of a badass,
Dementia fucking sucks. Since that original video I made, he fell over one day just in the garden, fractured his eye socket. Man who had all the strength and mobility and power just a year ago. So, for those of you wondering where I've been or what's been up with me, just general anxiety and concern, the same as everyone else, and then just a lot of shit going through my head at the moment that I'm not finding that easy to deal with. But I am talking to my friends about it. They know I've got some really good friends, so fuck you, Josh and Chris, but you're probably the only ones watching this, and if you are, thanks for being able to talk to you guys about this stuff. I do appreciate it. And thank you, Holly. You're the best partner and woman I could ever want for in this world. I had a day last week where I just spent the entire day breaking down and crying, and I couldn't have done that without her. And thank you to you guys, because I do get the occasional message of worry, and I get the occasional message, my subscribe star guys, gang, English gone. You guys know you're fantastic, and I love chatting to you guys. And also to the occasional weird comments I get on videos from the associated drama shit. I still get the occasional message from people that just saying thanking me for it and hoping that I'm okay, which is really cool. Yeah, I appreciate that shit. And so yeah, just thank you, everyone. That's where I'm at. 2020, in about 4 or 5 years' time, somebody is going to make a movie, and it's just going to be called 2020, and it'll be 120 minutes long, and each 10 minutes will cover one of the months of 2020, and it will be a best-selling, Oscar-winning, Academy Award-winning masterpiece that makes everybody cry and shit. That's the most depressing film of all time, probably. Peace.